Welcome to In the Zone. Glad you could join me. Hope you have had a good week thus far as we get you locked and loaded in the zone with a lot of sports action. A lot of things is going on, especially as we're getting ready to get geared up for the college football season. But there is a bit of a downer, and we're looking at HBCU schools right now. And one of the things that has happened, FAMU, to those of you who don't know, that's Florida A&M University, pauses football activities after rap video shot in locker room. Florida A&M has suspended all football-related activities following the release of an unauthorized rap video filmed in the team locker room that contained explicit lyrics. Coach Willie Simmons announced the decision last Friday night, hours after the release of Send a Blitz from rapper Real Boston Richie. Simmons in a statement said that while he supports free speech and musical expression, the language in the video is not consistent with Florida A&M's core values, principles, and beliefs. He said Florida A&M has started an investigation into how the football locker room was accessed for filming of the video and the use of licensed Florida A&M apparel that violates agreements. The video, which was posted to YouTube, shows Richie in the locker room wearing a Florida A&M shirt and wearing team helmets. Several Florida A&M players appear in the background of the video. Real Boston Richie, whose real name is Jalen Foster, is from Tallahassee, Florida, where Florida A&M's campus is located. He performed before the Rattlers' homecoming game last season. It is a privilege to wear the orange and green, and as a football program, our young men have failed to live up to the standards set before us, Simmons said in his statement. They will all learn from this mishap, and we will continue to work hard every day to become the best version of ourselves and continue to make Rattler Nation proud. Simmons has led Florida A&M since 2018. The team is set to open September 3rd against Jackson State. Keeping with some more college football news, there's a source that says Michigan's Jim Harbaugh facing a 4-game suspension. Michigan football coach Jim Harbaugh and the NCAA are in discussion about a so-called negotiated resolution for a 4-game suspension in the 2023 season, sources confirmed to ESPN on Tuesday. The looming suspension is tied to an NCAA recruiting investigation into Michigan in which Harbaugh faces a level 1 violation, the most serious kind in the NCAA's purview for not cooperating with NCAA enforcement. While the suspension and negotiations with the NCAA have not been finalized, the expectation is that Harbaugh would miss the first 4 games of Michigan's season. That includes 4 home contests in which Michigan is the prohibitive favorite. East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers. Is that really a 4-game suspension for the coach? I mean, when you look at that lineup, none of those teams strike any fear. Which basically means before Michigan goes into their big game, they should be waltzing in with a 4-0 record without the services of Jim Harbaugh. More to this story. Harbaugh's attorney, Thomas Mars, said in a statement, "We are continuing to work cooperatively with the NCAA staff on an enforcement matter. At this time, we are not allowed to comment on possible penalties or other aspects of the matter. We are continuing to work cooperatively with the NCAA staff on an enforcement matter," Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel added in a statement Tuesday. At this time, we cannot comment further on any aspect of the matter. The alleged recruitment improprieties are tied to alleged violations that took place during the COVID-19 recruiting dead period. The initial investigation into Michigan included just 4 Level 2 violations, which are less significant in scope, but the failure to cooperate emerged during the investigation, and in January, there were multiple meetings between Harbaugh and the NCAA in which he refused to admit he lied during the investigation. According to a source, Harbaugh still has not acknowledged specifically that he misled or lied to NCAA staff investigating the matter, but the negotiated resolution reflects that he did accept responsibility for recruiting violations in the case. Yahoo Sports first reported Harbaugh's likely suspension Tuesday and noted it could take up to a few weeks for the NCAA Division I Committee on Infractions to finalize the penalty. The way NCAA rules are currently written, a 4-game suspension for a head coach would mean that the coach could not be present in the facility where the contests are played and have no contact or communication with football coaching staff members or student athletes during the suspension period. Per the NCAA's recent Tennessee ruling that includes all coaching activities for the period of time that begins at 12:01 a.m. the day of each contest and ends at 11:59 p.m. on those days. According to the NCAA, which gave a general interpretation of the rules as it cannot comment specifically on Harbaugh or any ongoing investigation, this means that a suspended coach such as Harbaugh would be able to coach practice during the week during the 4-game suspension, but would not be allowed in the stadium or to have any contact on game days. The potential severity of the suspension makes it clear that Harbaugh's actions during the investigation significantly increased the severity of the potential penalty from the initial investigation. And the advanced negotiated resolution discussions are a sign Harbaugh is looking to put the mess behind him while being expected to admit some level of culpability in the matter. The scope of the investigation and penalties isn't limited to Harbaugh within the Michigan program. Sources confirmed that 2 current Michigan assistant coaches, offensive coordinator Sharon Moore and tight ends coach Grant Newsome, are both expected to be sanctioned in the investigation. Sources indicated to ESPN that those will be significantly lesser in scope than Harbaugh's expected 4-game penalty. Yahoo also reported that former Michigan defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald, now with the Baltimore Ravens, is expected to receive a 1-year show cause penalty. Macdonald's status as a current NFL coach makes the punishment essentially irrelevant. The news comes amid a boom time for Michigan football as it reached the college football playoffs in consecutive seasons. Michigan entered Big Ten Media Days this week with the expectation that it'll have its best roster out of the past 3 seasons as it returns star quarterback J.J. McCarthy, tailback Blake Corum, and a defense that's considered among the elite in the country. The past 2 seasons have been a collegiate renaissance for Harbaugh, who brought the program back from a 2-4 record during the COVID-19 shortened season in 2020 and in 2021 snapped an 8-game losing streak to arch-rival Ohio State. Michigan has lost to Georgia and TCU in the semifinals of the past 2 college football playoffs. Harbaugh has flirted strongly with NFL jobs the past 2 seasons, having significant discussions with both the Denver Broncos and Minnesota Vikings over that time. Harbaugh is 74-25 during his tenure at Michigan, including going 25-3 overall and 17-1 in Big Ten play over the past 2 years. Harbaugh went 44-19 as coach of the San Francisco 49ers from 2011 to 2014, which included a Super Bowl appearance and 3 NFC title game appearances. So there you have news on what's going on at Florida A&M and the looming suspension hanging over the head of one Jim Harbaugh. You are listening to In the Zone with Anthony Smith. And what I'm going to do right now, I am going to go ahead and take my first break. But don't you go nowhere. Stay locked in the zone with yours truly, Anthony Smith. Welcome back to In the Zone with Anthony. And I know college football is right around the corner, and I should be doing more shining the light on previews, which I will. In that first segment, I kind of hit on Florida A&M University and their what you would call off-field problems with a rap video. However, even in lieu of the rap video, Florida A&M is picked to win the SWAC East, even after rap video controversy. So, from the Associated Press, coming out of Birmingham, Alabama, Jackson State is no longer the Southwestern Athletic Conference frontrunner, and Florida A&M has something to talk about other than a locker room rap video. Coaches and sports information directors picked Florida A&M to win the East Division in voting released Tuesday at SWAC Media Day in Birmingham, Alabama. Jackson State and then coach Deion Sanders have been the dominant team the past 2 years. The favorite status came a few days after Florida A&M had banned its players from the team's facilities after a rap video featuring some players was shot in the locker room without proper permission. Notice how, if you heard that first segment, it says we have failed to live up to our basically code of ethics. You know, he says, I believe in free speech, but this is not an indication of who Florida A&M is, and he shut the facilities down. Doesn't that remind you of a scene from the movie Coach Carter? It wasn't about how many players actually succeeded in the classroom. It was about those who didn't. We win as a team, we lose as a team. When one fail, we all fail. Florida A&M Athletic Director Tiffany Dawn Sykes allowed the team to resume all activities starting Tuesday, coinciding with Media Day. She will not comment on the incident until the university's investigation is complete. Coach Willie Simmons addressed it with his team on Monday. They're resilient. We've seen our fair share of adversity, and this won't be our last one, Simmons said Tuesday. We talk to our guys all the time about how we respond to the challenges that we face. But for us, it's about growing as a football team. Part of our job as coaches is just to lead and to teach. And every moment is an opportunity to teach. And that's what we look at this moment as. The rapper in the video is real Boston Richie, who is from Tallahassee, where Florida A&M's campus is located. Richie, whose real name is Jalen Foster, performed at Florida A&M's homecoming game last season. SWAC Commissioner Charles McClellan said he talked to Sykes about the situation on Sunday and that the school has handled it magnificently. Anytime you suspend football activities, it is a concern with the conference office, McClellan said. But we've worked with them every step of the way. We feel 100% confident that they have handled it in the manner in which it should be handled, and we are confident that they are going to be able to move forward and that everyone is going to learn from this example of what occurred there with the locker room and the video and the content of the video. The Rattlers, who were 9-2 last season, and quarterback Jeremy Musa have high expectations this season. Musa was named preseason SWAC Offensive Player of the Year, while Grambling State lineman Sandiata Anderson was picked as preseason Defensive Player of the Year. Southern was picked to repeat as SWAC West Division champion. The race for the title is presumably more open with changes at Jackson State. Sanders left for Colorado along with star quarterback and son Shedeur Sanders and two-way standout Travis Hunter, among others, as part of an exodus of talent. Jackson State was still picked second in the East Division behind FAMU, which got 16 first-place votes, while the Tigers and three other teams got 2 apiece. They didn't just fall off the face of the earth because Deion Sanders left, Alabama A&M coach Connell Maynor said of Jackson State. They've still got a lot of good football players over there. They're still going to be good. The two-time defending champion Tigers went 23-3 the past 2 years, beating league opponents by an average of 30 points last season. New coach T.C. Taylor, a former Jackson State player and assistant coach, said the remaining Tigers have a desire to show everybody what we're made of. Everybody knows that we had a lot of turnover on our roster, Taylor said. You can lose a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, a phenomenal player like Travis Hunter. You know, teams start to look at them and think that they're going to struggle this year. But I know I've seen it every day, our football team, what we bring to the table this year, how the guys have approached it each day. Florida A&M and Jackson State face off Sunday, September 3rd at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. Jackson State won 59-3 last season. So there you have that news right there as we are getting geared up toward the college football season. In other related news, now we're going to get down to the brass tacks of what's going on with college football, because a lot is going on. Conference realignment still hasn't stopped. The Big 12 is going to look different. But one of the things that has really changed the landscape of college athletics is the NIL. We will get to the transfer portal some other time, but right now we're going to deal with the NIL because NCAA president calls new bill a major step for NIL. So there is a new bill, and it's called the PASS Act, which aims to protect athletes' integrity, protect athletes and the integrity of college sports. For the second time in the past week, a bipartisan group of U.S. senators proposed a federal law that will regulate how college athletes are allowed to make money and reshape the health care they are guaranteed to receive from schools. Senators Tommy Tuberville, who's a former coach, and Joe Manchin introduced the PASS Act of 2023 on Tuesday, calling it a year-long effort that they hope strikes a balance between protecting the rights of student athletes and maintaining the integrity of college sports. The bill is the first to be introduced this summer, but it joins other drafts of similar legislation shared by members of both the Senate and the House in recent months. Federal lawmakers have proposed more than a dozen bills to reform college sports in the past 3 years, but thus far none has made it beyond the first step in the legislative process. Leaders from the NCAA, its most powerful conferences, and many of its schools have traveled to Washington this summer to try to convince Congress to act. They say that the current lack of nationwide standards has created a race to the bottom among state legislatures that are passing laws designed to try to give teams in their state a competitive advantage in recruiting. Along with creating a national law for NIL deals, the PASS Act would also require schools to provide health coverage for sports-related injuries for 8 years after athletes finish their college eligibility. Even the NFL don't get that. Athletic departments that generate more than $20 million annually would also be required to cover out-of-pocket medical costs for 2 years after an athlete's playing career. Athletic departments that generate more than $50 million annually would have to cover 4 years of out-of-pocket expenses. The bill also seeks to create a certification process for agents that work with college athletes, a public database for anonymized NIL deal, and a uniform contract for athletes to use in NIL deals. Those items have been on the wish list of the NCAA President Charlie Baker since he took on his new position in March. Baker has said he wants Congress to create consumer protections for athletes as part of a new law. This important legislation is a major step in the right direction to ensure the health and safety of student athletes, includes key measures to increase consumer protections and transparency in the NIL market, and aims to protect women's and Olympic sports, Baker said in a statement provided by press aides for Manchin and Tuberville. The bill would make it illegal for states to pass individual laws that allow college athletes to receive a direct share of the billions of dollars of revenue they help to generate. This past year, a state representative in California proposed a bill that would allow for revenue sharing on teams that produce a significant amount of money for their schools. The bill was paused this summer. The PASS Act represents another step forward on the pathway to securing the future of college athletics, a joint statement from the Power 5 conference said Tuesday. The recent increase in activity from lawmakers demonstrates the growing consensus that federal NIL legislation is necessary, and now is the time to act. We will continue to work with members of Congress for both parties to develop a federal NIL standard in the upcoming weeks and months. The senators also suggested making it against federal law for a college athlete to transfer without sitting out a year until he or she has used at least 3 years of their college eligibility, except for extreme circumstances such as the death of a family member. Coaches and athletic directors have complained during the past year that the combination of NIL money and a relatively new NCAA rule that allowed players to transfer without penalty has made it difficult to maintain a steady roster. We need to ensure the integrity of our higher education system, remain focused on education, and keep the playing field level, said Tuberville, who coached football at Texas Tech, Cincinnati, and Auburn prior to starting his political career. Congress begins its month-long summer recess next week, with an election year on the horizon and multiple pending legal cases that could make college athletes into employees of their schools or conferences. College Sports Administration believe the window for passing federal legislation to regulate how athletes make money may be closing quickly. Those leaders are still lacking consensus on the best way to address what they view as the problem with the current college sports model. American Athletic Conference Commissioner Mike Oresco, for example, said the NCAA needs to be very careful about looking to Congress for answers to NIL and other questions after reading a draft version of a bill introduced last week by 3 other senators, Cory Booker, Richard Blumenthal, and Jerry Moran. That provided for more prescriptive changes to some of the NCAA's current operations. The current Blumenthal-Booker-Moran draft bill concerns me, Oresco's statement said. Any such bill should be subject to great scrutiny. The establishment of a third-party governing body overseeing college sports concerns me. We should be controlling our affairs. Yes, we need some federal legislative or court protection, but we need the ability to execute whatever reasonable plan that we adopt. So with that being said, you can tell right now some battle lines are being drawn. And there is definitely going to be some split on this NIL and legislation deal. So everybody's not on board. But if you notice, it's the guys from the big conference, the Power 5 conference, the SEC, that is really pushing this narrative about this NIL and getting Congress involved. All I can hear right now is Charles Barkley saying you do not want Congress to get involved. What you need is some sports guys that know more about what's going on with the NCAA than Congress. That's basically what Charles Barkley said. And I mean, there are some other things Charles Barkley said in regards to that too, but I'm not going to share that. Well, he said those guys are idiots. He said those guys are crooked. He said you do not want Congress getting involved in NCAA affair. That's what Charles Barkley said. Those are his words, not my word. I'm just repeating what was said, just in case it said that I said it. No, I didn't say that. I'm just repeating what the messenger said. So get the message, not the messenger. With that being said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a break from talking. And when I come back, I will have some more for you, as I promise I'm going to at least give us a teaser and get us ready for the college football season, because there are some points of interest that I want to look at, some things that we should be looking forward to as far as changes in the 2023 season. So stay locked in the zone with yours truly, Anthony Smith. Welcome back to In the Zone with yours truly, Anthony Smith. Hope you are enjoying being in the zone as we are looking at a plethora of news, getting you geared up for the college football season. And there is a list of 15 things to watch for in the 2023 season. But what I'm going to do is, if I don't give you all 15, I'm going to give you as many of them as I can with the time that I have. Because in the days to come, not only am I going to give you the 15 things to watch for, I'm also let you know about coaches that are on the hot seat, best games of 2023, and ranking the conferences in a conference breakdown of what to expect in each of these conferences. But I'm going to look at as many of these 15 things to watch for in 2023 as we get ready for the college football season. So who is this year's TCU? Well, last year, the Horned Frogs came out of nowhere to make an epic run to the national title game, falling just short of the ultimate prize by running into the back-to-back buzzsaw of the Georgia Bulldogs. Who could this season's first-timer be? A handful of household name programs are still looking for their first college football playoff berth, and while it wouldn't quite be on the TCU level in terms of Cinderella at the ball, the likes of USC, Penn State, Texas, Tennessee all have conceivable roads to the top of the mountain. The Trojans have the nation's top returning quarterback in Caleb Williams, who could make a run at back-to-back Heisman trophies. The Nittany Lions involved will both have to weather a changing of the guard at quarterback, but otherwise, strong rosters on both sides of the ball could propel them to playoff contention. Texas will have to replace the two-headed monster of Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson at running back, as well as some key starters on defense. But Quinn Ewers could have the Longhorns thinking championship if he plays up to his lofty potential under center. If you're looking for out-of-left-field contenders, dark horse candidates like Texas Tech, Tulane, Oregon State, North Carolina, and Wisconsin all share some combination of traits with last year's TCU team. If the ball bounces the right way at the right time, any of those programs could be poised to make a magical run of their own. Number 2, the calm before the storm of change. If things which do not grow and change are dead things, as Louis Erdick said, then college football is very much alive as it heads into the 2023 season. This season marks the final year of the current 4-team CFP format, as the new 12-team era is set to begin in 2024. While some fans might oppose expanding the list of playoff teams, many others have been clamoring for a more open competition for the national title. They'll get their wish after this year. There are some seismic conference changes coming down the line as well. Texas and Oklahoma are headed to the SEC after this season, while USC and UCLA will be joining the Big Ten. Yeah, doesn't make sense to me either. Those new additions also are likely to shake up the conference schedules for those groups as they reshuffle the deck after adding these household name programs to the mix. Big Ten has a new TV deal this year, while the SEC and Pac-12 should have new contracts of their own for 2024 and beyond. If you aren't a fan of the Red River Showdown being absorbed into the SEC, or the Trojans and Bruins being conference rivals with the Buckeyes and Wolverines, or having to watch a number 12 seed getting thumped on the road in a first-round playoff matchup, you had better enjoy this last gasp of a season before these new realities take effect. Number 3, can Georgia three-peat? In today's era of college football, it's extremely hard to win back-to-back national titles. But that's exactly what Kirby Smart's Bulldogs have done over the past 2 seasons, becoming the first program to achieve that lofty goal since Nick Saban's 2011-2012 Alabama teams. Now, one question looms large over Athens heading into 2023. Can they win it again? To find a three-peat team at the top of the college football ranks, you'd have to go all the way back to Minnesota in the mid-1930s, before there was even an AP poll. The Dogs lost quite a few key players this offseason, including starting quarterback Stetson Bennett IV, who helped lead both national title runs from under center. Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Keely Ringo, Darnell Washington, Christopher Smith II, and Kenny McIntosh are also among the starters Smart will have to replace this season. But UGA found itself in a similar scenario after losing a ton of talent to the next level after its 2021 title run, and the Bulldogs were able to reload with their deep stable of talent and get to the top of the mountain again. Smart and his staff have continued to shine on the recruiting trail, so it won't be surprising if they're able to fill those holes on the roster with the next wave of future NFL draft picks on their way to another national title bid. Number 4, interesting year in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is going through a transformational period with a new non-ESPN TV deal and a new commissioner, Tony Petitti, on the way, as well as the addition of 2 top-shelf programs in USC and UCLA next season. Those aren't the only big moves happening in the conference either. Matt Rule takes over as head coach at Nebraska after Scott Frost's failed homecoming, hoping to pull off a similar turnaround to the ones he captained at Temple and Baylor before a short, unsuccessful stint leading the Carolina Panthers in the NFL. Wisconsin has a fresh face on the big headset as well. Luke Fickell comes over from Cincinnati to take over for Paul Chryst, hoping to lead the Badgers back to relevancy after last year's fifth-place finish in the West. While those changes swirl around the conference, things shouldn't be much different this year when it comes to the power brokers at the top. Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State are all preseason top 10 teams with the talent on both sides of the ball to make a run at the conference title and perhaps playoff berth. A dark horse candidate could always emerge out of nowhere, but right now, it's still looking like a three-way race atop the conference standings yet again this year. Number 5, the new look Big 12. Math sticklers still won't be huge fans of the Big 12 this year, as the conference will have 14 teams competing. The 2023 campaign will be the Big 12 swan song for longtime powerhouses and bitter rivals Texas and Oklahoma, which are headed to the growing super conference that is the SEC in 2024. Na 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 na. Hey, goodbye. Hey, sometimes you just have to add a little humor in your show. As those story programs head out of the door, the Big 12 has reloaded its ranks with 4 newcomers in Cincinnati, UCF, BYU, and Houston, all of whom will want to announce their presence with authority after enjoying varying levels of success elsewhere in recent years. It should be a wide open race for the conference title this year, a long list of worthy challengers hoping to push the usual suspects for a shot at the trophy in Arlington. TCU is coming off an appearance in the national title game, while Kansas State could be a threat once again after knocking off the Horned Frogs in last year's Big 12 championship. Number 6, Petrino and Jimbo at Texas A&M. Something's got to give for Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies, who have largely fallen short of lofty expectations since Texas A&M broke the bank for its current head coach. Despite some brief moments, Fisher's teams have underachieved for much of his tenure, leaving the former FSU head coach with a lower winning percentage than Kevin Sumlin, whom he replaced heading into this season. Enter Bobby Petrino, who takes over as Aggies offensive coordinator in 2023. It's an odd pairing, but one that could work for an offense in desperate need of a jolt. And we're not talking about cola, but they might need some of that too. It ranked 101st nationally in scoring offense at 22.8 points per game. Petrino's offense have a long track record of success at all of his stops throughout his long career at the college level, and his schemes could be the key that unlocks a talented roster and helps it reach its full potential. Fisher has been successful on the recruiting trail in recent years, so there is no shortage of talent in College Station. If Petrino can turn the offense around, the Aggies might finally be able to make a legitimate push for SEC West contention, even with some heavy hitters at the top again. I'm going to go ahead and give you this one, then I'm going to put a wrap on this. Number 7, Pac-12 on its last leg. Or is it? If this is the end of an era for the Pac-12 with USC and UCLA heading off to the Big Ten next year, it's at least shaping up to go out with a bang. The conference is well represented in most preseason top 25 projections, with as many as 6 teams that could make a strong case for consideration. The Trojans are a popular preseason top 10 pick, along with Oregon and Washington, With its star recruiting quarterback Michael Penix Jr., UCLA and Oregon State are worthy dark horse candidates that could give them a run for their money. Utah can't be counted out after back-to-back conference titles, but one of the big storylines will be Utes quarterback Cameron Rising's return from a torn ACL suffered in the Rose Bowl in January. Arizona State and Stanford will be breaking in new head coaches, as will Colorado, as Deion Sanders immediately becomes one of the main attractions in all of college football for the Buffaloes after his success at Jackson State. A new TV deal is likely on the horizon for the Pac-12 as well, which could soften the blow as the Trojans and Bruins prepare to say goodbye. Will either of them go out on top, or will another program usher in the new era with a strong statement in the form of a conference title and potential playoff appearance? Well, I will conclude the rest of this. Most likely, I will probably be back on here Friday, maybe before. But I tell you what, you've been locked in the zone with yours truly, Anthony Smith. As always, I enjoy doing what I'm doing to entertain each and every one of you out there. So I hope you have enjoyed being locked in the zone. Enjoy the rest of your day. And wherever you listen to this podcast at, share it. Let everybody know that you're in the zone with Anthony Smith. Until the next time, be blessed.
I was at since the second grade. Man, I swear my time is coming, cause I'm never late. Came from broken homes and broken dreams to getting paid. Dollar bill. Listen close, this is not a drill. Cause hungry trying to get a meal. I've been in light, who gon' pay a bill? I've been in action, been in traction. Surplus with nipples lacking. Shining light, but still be blacking. Red lights will stop the action.